we're actually pointing to the next question, which is where are the new ideas going to come from? Many of them are coming from this table.
We got it covered.
But can I ask
In vino veritas.
Can I ask something? It seems like we are really focusing on a certain population of people.
Yes.
And that's interesting, but not really, to me, relevant.
Well, it's not reality.
It's not reality.
And the reason it's not reality is
because the
78%
masses are not being educated. And so, so far, our system is requiring the masses to come to technology. And I'm wondering, what does it mean for it to be the other way around? We are losing a generation. We are elite. I am not worried about SPU or UW students. I am not. So what that they can, that's great that they can learn from somebody in Harvard and Paris. That's great. They'll figure it out. We're losing a generation. And if technology doesn't figure out to do it that way, as opposed to what are your chances of getting to a computer and logging on and having someone introduce you, they don't even know what the potential is and the possibilities are. So all of this is it's interesting, but it's like, I just came from Hartford. The number of youth and young people on the streets is staggering. Staggering.
So today we had a group of students that came to the foundation. And these are all students from low-income backgrounds at different places in their educational career. And one of the students was sharing how he knows more of his either family members or peers from his neighborhood that are in prison or incarcerated than who have even finished high school. And I mean that's not uncommon.
The graduation rate.
Right. Well, you don't need to go to Hartford. I mean, I know you know that, but you go I-90 south down to Tacoma. You draw the circle around from us through Kent, Highline, Redmond, Federal Way. Right now, kindergarten students starting have a 2 in 10 chance of persisting to a 2 and 4 year degree in South King County in our own region, right? And so imagine the juxtaposition of this space, this conversation, this table. Go to I-90. If you're a student of color in that same region, it's 1 in 10. So
and technology needs to go to them somehow, make it accessible. And I'm not the one, I don't know.
I think there's only one solution actually, and it's probably the hardest to change, and it's culture. Because there are plenty of countries in the world where their poor people make our poor people seem like rich people. And they're voracious about education. Their families will spend a third or half of their monthly income on educating their students. They won't have clothes to wear. They will barely have food to eat. And the reason they do that is, and it's not technology that they have, of course, it's just it's their culture. And the culture in this country is not to spend half of your income on your child's education. It's to have a television and a car and shoes that are cool to wear. So until we change if we change the culture, all of these things would change. If people were voracious about becoming educated and learned, there's a lot of opportunity in this country, a lot more than any other. I'm a big advocate of Peter Drucker's point that this is the greatest socialist nation that ever lived, and we owe a great amount of our success to the community college system that no other industrialized country in the world has actually. And so there are means here. There's not a culture of people where that's the coolest thing to do. In China, when they brought High School Musical to China, this is a really interesting phenomenon. So, does anyone know about this? So, when they brought High School Musical to China, they were like, the producers were like, there's a problem actually. Jocks are considered losers in our culture. The cool kids are the smart kids. High School Musical in America, the jocks are the cool kids and the smart kids are dorks and not cool. And so like, we're actually going to have to flip that around in our country. The jocks will be the losers in the movie and the smart kids will be the cool kids. What's that? No, I mean, it's just a completely different movie, right? They remade the movie for China, but the plot had to change and the roles had to change. And I think
so bypass the parents and go straight to the kid.
Well, so once you
change the climate.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's
get to the kid.
And that's the value.
Well, but if the parent is saying the value isn't there, And there's lots of ways.
You're not going to probably
say
change
that.
those parents because they're already sort of grown
I
up.
agree.
So
get
one of
straight
the
to the kids.
solutions is the Gateway to College program. We have a grant through the Gates Foundation where they locate high school dropouts. These are kids that have dropped out in 9th or 10th grade. They're paired with intensive counseling and advising, and they get through high school and college at the same time. And I can tell you, because I have these students in my programs, you get them engaged in something that they care about.
There it is.
Whether it's I want to learn AutoCAD, or I want to make video games, or I want to be a video producer, and you would not know they're the same kids that walked in with the issues that they had. It doesn't work for everybody, but there's a glimmer of hope there.
You're creating a new culture for them.
So I'd push back
But
a
it's
little
the
bit. So
volume?
we work a ton in, you know, I mean, we can drive right now through the Rainier Valley. We can go to Rocks Hill in the Central District, and we can go to these places. And so I've read The Giving Tree too. A lot of the stuff you're coming from is coming from the book. I think it's a little simplistic to just simply say that parents in the Rainier Valley, I mean, let's contextualize it, don't care about education, that they care a lot. And so I'd push on that. I'd force us to kind of
just to culture.
What about as
to
a
equate
nation?
parents to
right?
culture is I don't think it's right. Culture
As a
is so much
nation,
more than the parents.
Do we, I mean, so there's an argument to be made that actually we spend more per capita on education than we did 30 years ago, and the outcomes have been flat. But when you look at funding, public state education, like the funding stream from the states, consistently that's being deleveraged over the last 20 years.
That's right.
you
We
know?
continuously defund.
So as states, the states are moving out of
But I
the
mean,
education.
if we imagine doing the same conversation at Concord Elementary, you know, the little elementary school that you see that's 90% Latino on the way down to the airport, and we were asking parents, what do you care about? Every person around the table, and we go back to that table, would say education. So I just want us to just challenge. I mean, if we're going to challenge higher ed in the same way, I just want us to.
do are different things. And
I don't know that I don't know that I frame what they're doing. I think it's too facile.
They're running as fast as they
When they
can.
say they care about
with the
education, when
resources.
you watch their behavior, it's not the same.
I think we're sitting at too nice of a table to make that claim. I think this is too comfy.
It's not a lot of things.
I know, but I think this is too. I think we're too comfortable with ourselves if we're gonna leave that on the table and challenge.
But maybe there's a middle ground, that given the lack of resources that a parent has, and the reality, I came from a single parent family, I get that. You can only ask so much of a parent. I'm still saying, get to the kid.
But don't you get to the kid by going to the thing that actually interests them? When you take them out of their, where they struggle to succeed, is in a certain paradigm that we're defining, that has all of the rubrics and all of the things that are necessary for assessment and all that. Like what's the rubric for video, or what's the rubric for video game design? Like there certainly is or are those things, but like that is self-directed, casual,
Portfolio-based.
portfolio-based, experience-based, passion-driven education.
Yeah.
And that, like, if I'm sitting at the head of the table, the camera right there, no, like that it seems to me that it does not solve the problem. I'm not going to go that far, but it certainly addresses a huge cross-section of learning. Because what I don't do is I don't fit into the system. If you don't fit in the system, like what other opportunities do I have? Whether I love education, value it, I can hate education but love making video games. And what is wrong with that as education? And we all are not going to read from Plato, but we do have to align ourselves with something we're passionate about, something that's going to allow us to focus on something long enough to be a good citizen, to be all the things that transcend just education, which is like participating in culture and society, and all that stuff comes from what largely boils down, or can boil down to, self-directed, passionate. Casual is a risky term to throw in there, but I would just offer that up.
Self-directed is also a really big ask, right?
Well, and it's a
Because
huge
For people
ask.
other than Chase, quite frankly, I think that's actually right. So for him, it's not a big ask.
It's a
in his
huge ask
nature
for
to
a
be
kid
like
of
this.
college.
No, I know.
They can be self-directed their entire life and have all the passion in the world. But if you don't have somebody that's with you to make sure that the doors are open for you to be like you and like you and like you, yeah, I'm sorry, it's not happening.
And you won't even know
And
what
you
you don't
won't
even know.
Yep.
that it's not ever going to happen for you.
So is there an education that we can provide around understanding ourselves, like being able to ask I have what I consider to be a very, very lucky job. I pinch myself every day, and I have what I end up being socially in the Twitter sphere and whatnot is a career counselor. Because most of the how do you get to do and I ask them, what do you give a shit about? People can't actually answer that question because they've never been asked it in a meaningful way where they actually have to do something.
No,
They don't know
no, because when they told you what they gave a shit about, you did not validate it.
Right.
You did not say, you know what, I give a shit about that too.
That's what I'm finding at Real Girls. Girls
Exactly.
come in and they're saying really eloquently what matters to them, and it's the first time they feel like they've been heard.
Right.
And they're in a group of girls, and
Right.
they're in. There's not all that noise around to actually make something together and look at it together and judge it together, and then as a group almost go out in the world and pitch it together. But they've had the growth that comes from actually creating it together in a place that they weren't shut down because they weren't learning in the same way everyone else was, and they weren't being told no.
If you asked those kids when they were 4, what do you want to be? They would have told you, right?
Yeah.
But, as the older they get, the more they're told they can't be those things.
Yes.
Right. And so by the time we're asking them when they should be in high school, they've already shut down. Those are those things
there's
are
actually
just not
truth there though
possibilities.
too, right? I mean, when every 4-year-old wants to be a firefighter or
Absolutely.
so that there are needs, and we have needs for people to do other things that are not passion driven. And so let's think about that. We need
Accountants,
lawyers, garbage men.
Budget people are important.
Right? So we need people to do things that are not passion-driven careers. How do we also educate them?
Yeah, but actually, I mean, your best accountants are ones who are passionate about accounting.
Numbers, yes, but people that are doing cleaning, people that are doing
There's not a lot of 4-year-olds.
there's not a lot of problems.
Gosh, I can't wait to be That's true.
Very true. A couple of years ago, I heard Spike Lee talk about something, and one of the things that was really stuck with me was he said when he was growing up, there were 2 ways to be cool in his neighborhood. And one way was to play basketball, and the other way was to be really smart in school. And he said, I was the kid who was really smart in school, and look where I am now. And he said, now I go back to those same basketball courts, and there's only one way to be cool, and that's to play basketball.
Yep.
Now, I would bet if you went to that basketball court and said, do you want to build a video game? You might get some of those kids go, yeah, that's pretty cool. They might not, if you say, do you want to be smart? But do you want to build a video game? I'm in. There are ways to be able to say and use exactly what you do and exactly this world that excites students and says, I want to be part of that. You have to go to school to do that? Well, okay, maybe. But I want to build a video game.
The nerds are taking over. It's exactly the opposite. The basketball kids are becoming way less cool, like a part of a Creative Live. Like, I am seeking a pattern of celebrating geek culture, of celebrating programmers in a way that they've never been celebrated before.
I think her point is though that those people are fine. It's another 80% of people who are not. Who are not. The world is not giving them opportunities.
So let's turn the question back to I think what your original point is how does technology move toward that
The masses.
toward that population.
It's cheaper.
Okay, so that's actually I think that is it.
The penetration of smartphones into the projects is at the same rate as it is into the suburbs. Right? So the devices are there. They may not be used in the same way.
Not so much a laptop, but now the smartphone is
Smartphone penetration.
Now opened up the door.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Absolutely. And that's the portal in. You just have to be able to now create the desire to use it in that way.
And that's make an app for that?
Well, the
Why
approval
not?
to use it. I'm sorry? The approval to use it.
Yes.
So in our classrooms, and now I'm talking,
Or technology prisons,
K
I
through
like to call
12.
them.
That's right. That is considered to be an evil.
I understand
It
what
is
you're
an
saying.
evil.
I totally understand.
What
And
is
so-
Technology,
Smartphone.
anything
Smartphone
that
is an evil.
It's because teachers are
Now,
not
in
comfortable
the
with that.
public schools.
I
Now
hear
let's
you.
flip it and go to Lakeside. Every kid has one. It's an asset.
No,
It's
you're
a
right.
tool,
They have a
and the
tablet.
teacher teaches from it.
No,
And if you don't have
that's
your
exactly
smartphone, then obviously use your tablet.
That's exactly right.
But you go to Garfield, now this is really interesting, you go to Garfield, and on the 3rd floor, all kids have their smartphones. Garfield is a public school
Start to go
here.
down.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all the AP classes are on the 3rd floor. You are at that same school, and on the 1st floor and the 2nd floor, where we're teaching what they call regular classes.
Seriously?
I am not lying to you. We could have gone there today. We could have had this meeting with this table there today. And we could have had the students from Garfield asking these same questions.
Yep.
And none of those kids are able to use a smartphone, nor can they have a tablet in school. Because it is an evil in Seattle Public Schools.
Yeah.
But that's because the teachers are not comfortable with it.
No,
So-
it's not. It's
well,
not
some
just
of it
teachers.
is. The
It's
teachers.
more than just teachers. It is the.
It's a systems
It's
level.
a systems
paradigm
level
question.
thinking.
Yeah, it's a paradigm.
That this isn't, it's like sugar, you know, in certain places,
hate this stuff.
eat sugar is evil. Exactly.
I know, I hear you.
But Ruby,
You need a paradigm.
there is that fear factor as a
And
classroom
then-
teacher
Right.
as how it will be used against you.
Well,
Exactly.
because
So
So there is that,
Because it
no
probably
one
in
use
some
it,
ways
especially
may
at
be
that
used
age
against
level, because you will be.
computer science is not a validated topic for teachers to know, and so therefore, as a tool, they are not approved to use any of those tools in a classroom setting. And I know this because we're funding these teachers, and you know what? They are being funded, you guys, on one-offs, and they're taking a risk. They are taking a risk with their peers in the classroom of venturing into using this tool. And then, you know, we give them $10,000 to use this tool in the classroom to teach physics. And then the other teachers are like, how did you get that money? My God, you've won the lottery. And you know, all of the kids, are they bringing out different, you know? And so it's like, are you serious? This is how all of us operate in our life every day. But we actually have an education system that is ostracizing the student and ostracizing the teacher for thinking about using this tool that we all take for granted.
And also punishing the teacher. I mean, you saw
And punishing
whole
the teacher.
nonsense about, oh my God, the kid accessed pornography on the computer that the teacher had in the classroom, and the teacher's held responsible for the fact that the kid did something that every kid in the country does on the computer.
Well, but also the
the
teachers
reason that the
I have,
internet was
they talk
invented.
about the they're talking about that will record, right? Or take pictures and record, and then within seconds you're on
Oh,
Facebook,
totally.
right? So there's a fear factor
This is-
of how it's going
It's up
to,
on YouTube, right? I know.
yeah, the trust of the kids, and so I have had friends who say,
I know.
Right.
I don't trust where this is
I'm
going to
just
go.
I'm gonna jump in really quick. There is bourbon on the table, so I'm just gonna pass it. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
I don't know what wine is about truth. I don't know what bourbon the corollary is. But we're just gonna pass it. You finish your wine. You can take some. It's really delicious.
So I don't know if my comment is standing between you and bourbon, so I'm gonna make it really fast. Exactly. But I think that, go back to the hacking, I think our opportunity actually is within the context of schools, wherever they are, to imagine how technology enables us to do things that we haven't been able to do before. So at a systems level also. So with EduCurious, which is a project funded by Gates that our faculty are working on, has tried to reimagine high school courses, connecting high schoolers to expertise that exists out in the world. And so there are a lot of play, like, so you're right, I think that's a great play around technology, is to imagine how we make the lecture obsolete. But what if we actually make content knowledge and the way we think about content knowledge obsolete? And the teacher's role becomes a convener or a sort of curator of a whole host of expertise that exists out there in the world. Imagine that with faculty as well.
We're creating a whole college.
No, exactly. So, you know,
like
people are tinkering
That's
around.
exactly what we're
So, you know,
doing
you can
already.
take,
Yeah, but we're
so
gonna do this.
there is no reason why rigor needs to be boring. In fact, rigor is really exciting. And so there's, you know, there are examples.
Nor does it need to be elitist.
Yeah, nor does it need to be
That's
elitist. So there's
exactly right.
examples in a bunch of places that are doing this that are really, really exciting. I think it's just shifting. You know, there's no need that there's K-12's in need, desperate need to reform, higher ed's in desperate need to reform. But I do think that tools are there if we just continue to
And
keep
the will
pushing
is there.
ourselves. And the will is there.
And one of the things that we should emphasize is that these technologies will not displace necessarily the role of the instructor. There's a lot of fear,
They
latent
should
fear.
amplify the.
Yeah, it should amplify, enable. It actually, I think, gives weight
Proud of you.
to them to become absolutely, and develop those
I know, but
personalities
seriously.
rather than just spouting information.
Yeah,
Right? So it completely transforms that learning
That's back here
experience.
democratizing. I mean, I think that's a very There's a part of this conversation that circles around elitism, and I think
Yeah,
we should
yeah.
name that and think about that. But back to the democratizing of
And
this
keep it
discipline.
relevant. I mean, I actually developed one of the modules for Educurious
Oh, you did? Great.
last year. And it was based on the research from Gates and Educurious that a big indicator of high school dropout is when they have a student encounters their first classics literature class. And they fail it, and they go, I think it kind of confirms for them, well, this experience will have nothing relevant for me, I'm out of here. And so what we did is basically turn classic literature into a murder mystery.
Right.
We took the works of Edgar Allan Poe. We told that in a real-time, 24/7 experience that flowed through the social media that the school was using. So it's like literally messages flying back and forth between fictional characters about this mystery that the students had to read the Poe to be able to solve. And it really engaged them in a very different way because it used the mechanisms that their life moves through to tell them the story of Poe and encourage them to then and require them to go down and read that. And I think that you have to use those tools. Huh?
What was that?
They've run it now in 5 times in 5 different high schools here in town, and apparently it's working great.
And this is why I'm so anxious to partner with Jordan on your new narrative project, is I'm imagining as an English literature PhD, opening up Dickens like that, or opening up Jane Austen. I mean, there's no reason in the world why Dickens wouldn't be like a slam dunk of a fascinating story to tell people, if you could open it up the way that you opened up the Poe.
And I'll tell you, the outcome on the student level is in one of the Educurious enactments, there was a young woman, sophomore in high school, had preteen birth, kind of the typical urban dystopic, trajectory of childhood. In one of the Educurious enactments, where there was an interview with the author where they rewrite the end of one of the books, she hadn't read a book, but she realized that she was in fact, she got it. She got the choices that author was making. She got the choices how this connected to lives. She is now a prolific teen writer, literally a prolific teen writer. So this point is, if we can flip this stuff, if we narrow the line between what the work we do within some walls, whatever table, elitist or not, and this is an elitist table, to what's going out in the real world. And I think we have to, no matter what institution we sit in, we have to continue to push ourselves.
Are there solutions for underserved communities that aren't on the scale of the Harlem Children's Zone, where it is complete societal change? I mean, Akoff's definition of the problem in education and the system, in systems thinking, it's called a mess. There is no one thing you can do to enact a considerable change, and that's exactly what they've done. With Geoffrey Canada, he's changed the entire society of a small area, and it works very, very well. But it doesn't work when you solve one problem in the school walls. You have to go to the parents and be like, before your children are born, you and your unborn children are in our organization here, and we're with you from there until they start college. Do we think there are solutions that aren't like this deep and systemic? Can we just apply technology? Can we apply this one fix? Or is it a mess?
No, I have a question, because I've been thinking a lot about how, about higher education and disabled kids, and in all the ways that you talk about disabilities. And and I'll come back to Real Girls for a minute, just because it's such a tiny nonprofit trying to do a thing. So one of the things I was very impressed with at Real Girls before I arrived is all the staff was moved upstairs so that the entire media lab, which is a very portable kind of media lab, it wasn't the kind of definition I would have of a media lab before I arrived there. But so that the entire floor, the lower floor, is accessible, and we've added ramps, and we have reshaped the doorway so it's the lab is accessible for more students. And then next week we start something called This, and it's the first. Now I have to do this because some of the terms. Disability justice camp for girls with and without disabilities, and the goal is to bring a bunch of girls together, whoever's making together. But there are technological solutions, certainly around video and filmmaking, where I don't need my legs if I can get you to be my legs, and if there's
I'll be your legs.
and if there's closed captioning, and in many other ways, voice recognition, things like that. But even in trying to do that small thing in this small place, it has taken, and it apparently this little media thing is the first in the state of Washington, which is that's too bad, and that's good, but that's really shameful, I think, that we're at this stage, and that that's the first, and it has required enormous amounts of partnership and long relationships, for example, with Do It at the University of Washington, to make this happen, in part because I think parents of children, or who have self-identified disabilities, have just been they've been promised and promised and promised and promised. So it's actually hard to fill the small enrollment for this class because it's taking one-on-one interviews with parent plus child to make sure that the mom knows that the girl is going to be safe in that environment. It's not just one more broken promise that then, so and you're all in different places than this particular one. So I'm wondering how you see things working out, just technological solutions, how situations become better for students with all kinds of disabilities.
That's a great question.
Is it private? Is it private money, or is it public money that moves the technology to change and moves it toward the students with disabilities in a different socioeconomic status?
I think it's if they work together, it works well. So in autism, for example, they're finding that a lot of autistic students like computers more than they like humans. They get along better with computers. And so they're developing, they're making some ground with autistic students with iPads and technology. And there's starting to be a lot of dollars available from the government for autistic students, and this is driving entrepreneurs, several of which I know, that are like, well, let me find a awesome solution for autism, because it turns out there's $16,000 a year per kid for autism. So if I can make an iPad app that these kids love and engage with, and it works for them, there's sort of endless amount of money. So it's sort of a combination of entrepreneurs raising some capital from private people, and this promise of maybe some public money to help if you find some solutions.
So at our institution, we have 8% of our students are identified as having disabilities, and I think they bring absolute richness to the classroom. I've had students who blow on the pipe to move the AutoCAD cursor. I've had deaf students. We have students of all flavors of disabilities, and because we serve a lot of non-traditional students, I think they bring a richness, and to see some of these kids' eyes light up when they come to our institution and see there's a place for them, and there's a place where they can learn and expand their technology skills, because a lot of them are already talented in, say, Photoshop or video filmmaking or whatever it is, and even though they may be differently able, there might be a place for them. There is a place.
Well, I see the promise. I'm becoming extra aware right now of all the stories of broken promises and of not getting in, when sometimes differently, a disability is often the difference between a knob and a lever.
Well, the parents are often much more difficult to deal with than the kids, because they're so protective, because they've had those IEPs all the way through, because they have had to advocate from day one. And when those parents call me, I can't talk to you. Your child is now in college, but we will take care of them, and they have an opportunity.
The promise thing is something that I identify deeply with, because my wife, as I said earlier, was an educator in Seattle Public Schools for 6 years. And one of the things that I found fascinating was I would volunteer early, while teachers are prepping for the year, is some of the most intense time for them, I found. And she was at an alternative school. It was the district Asperger's program, which is a middle school, Salmon Bay Middle School, which has the longest, which is the longest waiting list of any school in the Seattle public school system. And if you have theoretically the most successful alternative school with the highest percentage of autism, and so you're the thing that the school district is ultimately celebrating or pointing to as the success, I was literally foraging for desks in the boiler room in the days before school started. Literally saying, can I make a desk out of this? This is 3 legs. Is there a leg down here? Can I take off another table to make this desk work so I can bring it up and put it in the most successful alternative school in Seattle? That's messed up. So when I hear broken promise. I've lived it through my own personal experience with my wife as a volunteer. That's very frustrating. It's very, very, it's very sad. I don't know how, that's why I'm asking. And so if Seattle is on the scale of cities in the country, you know, we're in the top percentage of education, we're in the top percentage of all these things, yet we still struggle. What is the measure of a school that's not?
Well, to
in
what
that
student do
section?
we actually fulfill all our promises?
Yes,
None.
So let's talk about
Not
that.
at
Just
all.
let's talk about a student in Arkansas, and let's talk about a student in East Africa. Like the pendulum is swinging so scarily far. It's really it brings about a sense of sort of despair. I don't know how you, like, it's very courageous what you do.
I just hope we get more than 4, because if we can't, we can struggle through 1, we can struggle through the summer, we can maybe try it again in the fall. But if we can't get the word out because it's small, and we won't be able to continue beyond the fall. And so then something that feels right now like where the architecture is almost a manifesto to the commitment, and the work of every staff person is moving toward this. It may not be something we can continue if we can only bring 4 or 5 students in.
Are the students engaged in solving the problem?
We don't have the students are coming in with their parents. We'll know next week when they're actually in the classroom.
How old are these kids?
Well, Real Girls has served 13 to 19 for a very long time, but it's backed in to 9 to 19 now because there's been so much need on the part of the parents wanting their younger daughters and their girls of all genders. And Real Girls is very, very, very welcoming to boys who identify as girls. It's not very welcoming to boys who identify as boys. So it has served boys from the very beginning, but it only counts as serving girls.
So we are, you are fulfilling your assignment more than anything. We promised to get you out of here by 10 to 8. I believe our student team has run through their questions. I've taken 22 pages of notes, which is amazing. Wow. So I wanted to give you the freedom to liberate you from this very programmatic approach to the conversation, to free-for-all. So you can talk about education, you can talk about your kids, you can do whatever you like. I just wanted to give you a call to action. As we move ahead, we have 2 more events left in Hackng Edu this month. Next Thursday at 6 p.m. in the middle of Red Square at the University of Washington, I'm supposed to be hosting a television show in front of potentially 1,000 people. I don't think we're going to get that many people. But we would love it if you feel like this is a conversation that is useful to your networks, if you could help spread the word. It's free. We're going to have some entertainment and food and stuff like that, and then we'll have this TV show that we're recording live for 4 peaks for UW-TV. We can ask a question.
Can you maybe help us with something we could copy and paste and tweet?
Sure. But more importantly than the TV show next week is our final event, which is going to be at the Jet City Improv in the U District, where Peter Diamandis is going to be our keynote along with Chase and Erica. And our students by then will have something larger and more cohesive to present after having been able to whittle down this rock that we started with last week, and we'll have this great sculpture to present to you, to Peter, and to say, here's the idea that we think that we want to move ahead with, or here's a couple of ideas, we really love your advice on this. So we're calling it TED meets American Idol. So as much as you can, we'll send a follow-up in the next 24 hours, but as much as you can, we would love it if you joined us on the 25th at Jet City Improv, and we'll send you full details on that just to play that role. And I'm not quite sure who plays Simon, Cal. I'm thinking Raheem. But JJ. Okay. So that's our.
If I promise to cry, can I do jail?
Yes. Susan. And I see Steven Tyler totally in tone here.
And one thing to keep in mind, the arc of this month started last week with the ideation phase of what we did on the window. Moving more now, how do we think about different sectors this week, the public event next week, and then the final sort of pitch. We want to move to an action. We've committed as a program, as an MCDM, we'll take up this idea and bake it into a class, create an independent study, make sure whatever we come up with, we get done. We want to move to action. So that's the art, but we want you guys to play along in this.
We've also been approached by Startup Weekend EDU, which is based out of New York, I believe. If they want to come to Seattle in October.
I found that.
Oh, okay.
Yay, way to go.
They want to host, based out of New York, by the way. So, it's okay, sorry. So we would probably collaborate with startup weekend to actually take the idea to that next level. So to us, this is just the beginning. And I just been sitting, listening to this conversation, and people who know me are amazed that I can actually sit quiet and not.
See how great
did a great job.
It was funded by the Gates Foundation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. But I was just utterly astounded by the quality of this conversation and the goodwill that you brought to participate, and I'm just gratified. So thank you very much.
Thank
Do you feel like you got a little bit of something here to move with? Do you want
Just a little bit.
Is there anything else you'd like to conclude with as we move along, or are you happy with what you got?
Well, Dan just whispered something in my ear, and rather than me saying it, I'm going to say, Dan, what did you whisper?
Well, I mean, where you stand in the spectrum of how much crisis that you perceive, that like these problems aren't going to go away overnight. And we foresee, even though we may not be a part of it next year, but this will be continuing, Hackng Edu will be continuing part of the MCDM sort of mission. And so it's something that, you know, in 1 month, you know, we're just barely scratching the surface and defining the terms that we're talking about. And this is stuff that we all do every day. It's really just getting people together and gathering people together to collect these ideas. But the MCDM will be revisiting this at least one four-week period every month, but also instituting throughout the year and reporting back to people like you in the community how we're doing and giving you the ability to check in with us and inform us. So that's all part of the sort of design of this, is that it's ongoing.
Will you all join me in raising a glass and remembering just for 1 second that hacking is an ing, that's active.
Nice.
So thank you so much
Here,
for putting this out.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
To MCDM.
MCDM. All right.